Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. I almost said YouTube Live, but both of them are brought to you by Olipop. Olipop is our new sponsor at OU Insider for our podcast, for our YouTube Lives. Anything that has to do with audio, video, it is brought to you by Olipop, which is one of the best, cleanest beverages that you can drink. As far as if you want sodas, that's where you go. Right there, Olipop. They got root beer. How many flavors do they have, Parker?
14 flavors.
There you go.
14 flavors in all of your familiar favorites, including root beer and cream soda and vintage cola, Dr. Goodwin, which is their answer to, you understand. I don't know if I can say it or if I should say it, the product name, but you understand where I'm going with that. Have a fantastic classic grape soda that tastes so much better than Fanta or Crush or your grape soda of choice. Try them out in stores, Walmart, Target, Sprouts, Whole Foods. You can find them in local retailers, or go to drinkolipop.com and use promo code ChampU20 to get 20% off your online order. Very grateful for Olipop's sponsorship of the program.
Yes. So if you're watching the video and I look a little red, there's a stupid light. I'm in a hotel. There's a stupid light that's got it's like a red light almost, and it's coming down on my face. Like any part of my body turns red when it gets underneath the light. So I apologize. I am not red. I have not been outside today other than for like 30 minutes. So there's that. Nothing like a couple weeks ago where I was red because I was burnt to a crisp, but Parker and I have lived in the sun for the last 3 weeks, almost a month. Burning is not our thing anymore. So anyways, hey, there was a huge weekend at Oklahoma as far as visitors goes. It was the first official visit weekend of the year for Oklahoma. There was hordes of talent on campus. There was guys by the name of, I don't know, 5-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri, 4-star Oklahoma QB commit Michael Hawkins, 4-star wide receiver Zion Ragins, 5-star defensive back Kobe Black. Just, the list goes on and on. We're going to discuss a lot of them here on OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. But if you do want to get more detailed, if you want to know really what's going on, because we're not going to be able to dive horribly deep here on this podcast, but OU Insider VIP, the Lindsay Street VIP board right now, you get free access if you sign up right now, free all the way up to August 10th, which is basically a couple weeks into camp, or about 6 days into fall camp, 7 days into fall camp for Oklahoma. So you'll get all the commit season. You'll get official visit season, ChampU BBQ, all of that. The Sooners Under the Stars, Party in the Palace, all of that will be for free on OU Insider if you sign up right now. And then later on, obviously, that's when we would charge you. Would be August 10th, and then you would get the season, you would get everything else all the way. You would get all the way through all the ChampU BBQ, everything, all the way through the summer again if you just sign up right now. So basically, you get 14 months essentially for a 12-month value. And to me, if you sign up for a year, to me, that is an amazing deal. And we've gained, I think in the last 4 or 5 days, we're over 100 new signups. So hopefully we'll get way more than that. We've been growing since we moved over to Rivals, and we can't thank you guys enough. All right, Parker, let's dive into Williams Nwaneri. I think that's first and foremost what everybody wants to talk about. Defensive line. That's where we got to start. And he was the lone defensive lineman on campus. He was the one of 2 5-stars on campus, joining Kobe Black. But you are one of the few people that talked to him. I talked to some people that were around him quite a bit. We both put up multiple notes on him already this weekend, but you have the one-on-one with him. Talk a little bit about that. Give us the gauge on how you feel about that. What's your feel right now?
Yeah, well, the big thing this weekend for Nwaneri, as far as the visit was concerned, it wasn't as much about him, and I know that instantly sounds bizarre to some, but he's already been to Oklahoma 5 times, and he himself acknowledged to me, look, there wasn't all that much that was new for me to see or experience at Oklahoma, but what this did provide was an opportunity for his parents to come down to campus for the very first time. They have not experienced Oklahoma yet. In the past, he's visited Oklahoma with his high school coach, Jamar Mosey, and a few of his teammates, at least Summit North. And Coach Mosey was on the visit with him again this past weekend, but his parents were too. And from the conversation I had with Nwaneri, it certainly appears as though the Sooners made the impression that they needed to make, especially with the Tennessee and Oregon official visits coming subsequent to this one. And the relationship with Miguel Chavis is rock solid. And that's really where the crux of the Sooners pitch lies, is in the fact that Chavis is Nwaneri's favorite coach and the guy that he's built the closest bond with. And so as things stand right now, it's going to take a lot for any other program, any other school to supplant Oklahoma in terms of their relational advantage over the field. Obviously, when you're talking about a 5-star defensive lineman, NIL comes into the picture. We know how involved Tennessee and Oregon are on that front. And so obviously you can't get confidence too high if you're an Oklahoma fan because, well, context. And you saw it last year with David Hicks going to Texas A&M when there's NIL involved, especially for a big-time defensive lineman. And especially at that position group, the market is so crazy and the figures are so high that anytime you have a player of that caliber and you know that there is going to be NIL involved in his recruitment, you have to maintain a healthy and relatively apprehensive stance. But that said, it can, just because NIL is involved and just because that is a factor does not mean it's going to be the deciding factor. And that's what you're counting on if you're OU right now. And proximity, development, relationships. One thing Oklahoma really did try to sell this weekend was, hey, come play on a defensive line that already is going to include PJ Adebawore and that in all likelihood is going to include Nigel Smith and potentially David Stone as well. That's an all-American defensive line right there, Brandon. And so that's what Oklahoma's selling Nwaneri on. Hey, all things considered, this is the best fit for you. There might be one school here or one school there that can offer more or that can make a more effective pitch as far as this one specific factor, but mindful of the whole picture, there is no better spot for you than the University of Oklahoma. That's what the Sooners are getting at. They made big strides on this OV weekend. You're going to have to withstand the inevitable charge from Tennessee and Oregon, but I still like where the Sooners sit here, and I still believe they lead for the 5-star defensive lineman out of Lee Summit North.
Okay. So, and I brought that up. My initial report was Saturday night around midnight. Talked to a couple of people, and that was the feeling is that Oklahoma felt like they've done everything that they could. And obviously they still had more things left to do. They had the final, talk with Coach Venables before they left, the exit interview, if you will, for the official visit. Venables spent, from what I'm told, an inordinate amount of time with Kobe Black and Williams Nwaneri on those visits, and really just poured into them as much as he possibly could, with his time, with his with relationship building, all that type of stuff. And still, the one thing, and I know you've heard the same thing, the one thing that keeps being brought up is, well, Tennessee's number one. They're the number one NIL collective in all college football right now. And it keeps being brought up over and over and over when I talk to people. And don't get me wrong, Oklahoma fans. As Parker noted, Oklahoma still feels really good because you have to understand money's great, but he's going to be like 12 hours away from home and instead of 4.5. And that's a start. That's an 8-hour difference, basically 7.5. What you're talking about now is like Sammy Brown, Oklahoma, Sammy Brown, Clemson type deal. It's almost the same thing where this kid has just been at Oklahoma over and over and over again. He has a relationship. His coach has a relationship with not just one player on the staff, not just one coach on the staff, excuse me, like he does with Josh Heupel at Tennessee. You're talking, 2 hands full you can count of people that Jamar Mosey is tight with on the Oklahoma staff because either one played with him, played underneath him, or just became friends because of the Oklahoma tie that they and bond that they all have. And so when you look and you break this whole thing down, Parker, it becomes okay. Is he going to fall for the NIL? Because that's the one thing that Tennessee's going to have over Oklahoma. And it's not that Oklahoma's not playing the game, because they're playing the game. But they're not willing to lose the locker room for one dude, for one guy. That has been a deal, and that's why you have not seen a lot of the guys that came in 2022 didn't transfer out, did they? You saw 2020, 2021. A lot of those guys did. But Brent Venables, first class, guys that he's dealt with, guys that they felt fit the program culturally, emotionally, everything. You don't see a lot of those guys leaving, do you, Parker? And
no,
it has
a lot.
Well, it has a lot to do with the fact that Oklahoma has the sole mission and the fact that everybody's getting, a base cut if you're on scholarship through Oklahoma's NIL. Now, the better players are getting more. That's that. But you can't have it be so lopsided. You can't have PJ Atabare, and this is just an example, folks, just an example. So don't take this as just what they're getting. But you can't have a PJ Atabare getting 150,000 and then you throw 300,000 at Williams Nwaneri. They're friends. They talk. You will lose the locker room if you do that. You can't have Williams Nwaneri making 300,000 and Deshaun McCullough only making 175. Like, guys that are already All-Americans or were freshman All-Americans probably need to make more than the guys that are coming in, realistically. And that's how Venables is and the staff is looking at, like, look, we're going to make sure you're taken care of and your family's taken care of, but not at the expense of the locker room. And that's where teams like a Tennessee and stuff, yeah, they're going to get their guys, but you're also seeing a Dejoun Terry where he was a byproduct of that exact situation. And he was one of the biggest up-and-coming defensive tackles returning for them. And things got a little twisted, got a little sideways, and now he's at Oklahoma. And I can guarantee you, and Parker, I don't know if you've mentioned that was probably discussed while Williams Nwaneri was on campus. Was it not?
Well, since you went there, yes, it was.
Well, I mean,
that's a real chess, not checkers move by the Oklahoma staff, right? Hey, you know what? He's going to Tennessee like next weekend. Let's go find the one guy on this roster that just transferred from Tennessee to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
pretty brilliant.
But he's not the only one. Key Lawrence is there. You could have brought Eric Gray back and had him talk to him. I mean, Oklahoma had some pieces in their holster there that they could have pulled out at any point in time and said, you know what? Here you go. So, and we're not saying like that was the main thing or it was negative recruit. It's not. They were telling you like it's what everybody does. They get in, it's like, okay, why did you transfer? and kids talk. Like, it's not like they're not going to find out at some point in time, because those type of players, they're all in a circle, and that 6 degrees of separation gets a lot smaller when you're in college football, because they're the elite of the elite, and there's not very many of them. Was it 1%, 2% of all players that play every year make it to some sort of Division I, Division II college football? It's not very many. So it's a small fraternity, and they all talk. So, I to me, Parker, I'm with you. I think Oklahoma, from everything I've heard, is still in a really good spot. But like I said, the hesitation is the NIL. Is he going to? He's not the type of kid that you would think would go for the NIL. But when there's large sums of money being thrown at you, you have to look at it and at least think about it, right? Like, there's so many moving parts with this, man. So many moving parts with this Nwaneri recruitment. So with that said, nuts on the table. Is he in
Oh, here we
Oklahoma's
go.
class? Is he in Oklahoma's class come National Signing Day?
Yes.
He could commit to Tennessee and flip. Like, I'm asking you, National Signing Day.
Yeah. I think he's in OU's class. I do.
Okay. I don't know yet. I can't. I'm not ballsy enough to say that yet, because I just, Tennessee. We just saw it with Lindstrom, just out of nowhere. Like, there it is. Everybody in his family wanted him at Oklahoma. He goes to Tennessee. So Tennessee's kind of for me, as an analyst covering recruiting, they're the type of program where when they're involved, you never really know what's going to happen. It's like Texas A&M in 2022, right? You just never knew what was going to happen when they were involved. Other than you kind of started feeling, by the end, you knew it was going to happen. They were going to end up at A&M, but there for a while, it was kind of a crapshoot. Oregon's that way too, as everybody's now knows. And so, was there any other players that I guess we have to go into this, because both you and I put Futurecast in for Zion Ragins. So dive into that. And essentially, I'm going to tell you guys before Parker talks. We knew going into this weekend that Oklahoma felt really good about it. It was after the visit took place that things almost became more of sure, just more sure about things. And that's where the Futurecast for me was put in. But Parker, you dove into it a little bit more in depth on the board. Can you kind of be a little vague but in depth at the same time here, and go into why you put your Futurecast in?
Yeah, well, I mean, we caught wind of the fact last week and reported it at the time that things had picked back up quickly with Zion Ragins, the 4-star speedster out of the state of Georgia, and that Oklahoma was going to host him on this weekend as the only wide receiver official visitor the weekend of June 9th through 11th. And the relationship with Michael Hawkins has always been strong there. The relationship with Emmett Jones has always been strong. The big question was always, could Oklahoma overcome the distance factor? Because Ragins comes from a very tight-knit family, and it definitely seemed initially in the early stages of this recruitment as if there was going to be a preference to stay closer to home. And so you saw programs like Georgia and South Carolina start to creep up there towards the top in Ragins recruitment. But Emmett Jones had Ragins on campus for multiple unofficials before this OV. And once this OV was set, man, touch and base with sources close to this recruitment, you really got the sense that Oklahoma was picking up steam in a hurry. And Ragins brought his whole family out with him for the official visit. Michael Hawkins spent a lot of time around Ragins over the course of the weekend. And obviously, as we mentioned, when you're the only wide receiver that's on the visit, you get a lot of attention naturally from Emmett Jones. And on a weekend where Jones had the opportunity to interact very intentionally with Ragins, and Hawkins had the opportunity to pitch him on being one of those guys. And, as in talking to the Hawkins, not just Mike Jr., but Mike Sr., the thought is you just need somebody that can run under those deep balls. And that's what Ragins can do. Michael Hawkins throws a pretty nice deep ball. And having fast receivers in this offensive attack, a la Jaquays Petaway, Brennan Thompson, KJ Daniels, and potentially Zion Ragins, that'll play in the SEC. And when Oklahoma missed out on Bryant Wesco, the question kind of became, okay, where do you go from there? Can you rebound with somebody that is as highly regarded and or offers as much of a downfield all-around threat in the passing game as Wesco? And obviously Wesco's a special player. That's not necessarily the type of dude that you replace one for one just like that. But if Oklahoma is able to close out Ragins, and all indications are that they will, man, that's a nice addition for Emmett Jones in this receiver room. A nice addition for Michael Hawkins in this offensive class. And from what I've been told, touching base with sources on the Georgia end, on the Tennessee end, it definitely seems like Oklahoma's in the catbird seat here after this official visit. So it's just a matter of sustaining that momentum and convincing Ragins, hey, you don't need to see anywhere else. Oklahoma's the spot for you.
Yeah. So, I'll say this. They have KJ Daniels already on board. If you can combine Daniels and Ragins and just have those two in the slot for speed, they're not the biggest guys in the world, but when you run Levy's offense, you need guys that are space guys, speed and space guys, and that's what those two guys are. And that's where the Zion Kearneys of the world come in and offset that, because he's a speed guy, but he's also quite large. I think, and this goes back to last cycle, Jaquays Petaway, it almost feels like at some point he's going to play this year, right? I also wouldn't be shocked to see Jacoby Johnson end up at wide receiver at some point.
Don't we love to see that?
Yeah, I just wouldn't. Just things I hear, I'm not like hearing that like it's imminent, but there is, I guess there's some waves, it's being thrown around more and more and more as, skills and drills goes on, because you keep hearing just how explosive Jacoby Johnson and Peyton Bowen are. Just they're ridiculously explosive. So when you start to hear that type of stuff, and you start seeing what Levy and Coach Jones are really looking for in a receiver, Jacoby Johnson fits that just as much as a Zion Ragins and a KJ Daniels and a Zion Kearney, because I would sit here and say Zion Kearney and Jacoby Johnson are similar as far as stature and speed and all of that. And then that's where you get those other two guys to offset that, potentially three with Petaway to offset their bigger frames. So I like what Oklahoma's doing at the wide receiver position. And again, Jacoby Johnson's a defensive back right now. It's just at some point in time, in my opinion, the fact that he ran that same system in high school, it feels like that would be a good move for Oklahoma if they feel comfortable with the depth that they have at corner, obviously. Another guy that we need to talk about is Jason Zandamela. I think, obviously, Florida State is a name you keep hearing over and over and over with the 4-star offensive lineman. He's out of the Tampa area, sort of. But I also, for some reason, there's a lot of people that keep talking about USC with him. And I know he has a visit coming up, but what's your gauge on that? Because for me, I don't know how much more I buy into the Florida State stuff as much as I do the USC stuff right now, just because, and maybe it's because of what I heard prior to the visit. There was a lot of USC traction with him. After the fact, what's your thoughts?
On Zandamela, it
It's a
still
tough
feels
read,
like there's a
bro.
lot to be decided there.
Yep.
And that's kind of how I phrased it in my initial notes from the OV weekend is, yeah, things went well, but would you be comfortable saying OU is the leader in the clubhouse? No.
No.
Would you even be comfortable saying OU is the outright leader? Probably not. Now, that's not to say at the end of the process, the kid can't take stock of everything, recap his 3 official visits, and decide, oh, use the best spot for me. But I don't know that what Oklahoma was able to do this past weekend necessarily gives me the belief that Zandamela is a slam dunk for this class, or even that it's a high probability that he ends up in this class. There's a lot to be decided. You're going to have to weather the storm with the official visits to USC and Florida State. Now, what's interesting is talking to a good source down in the Sunshine State on Zandamela. He's from Africa. He's not originally a Floridian. And so the proximity pull for the Seminoles is not as strong as it might be for your typical Florida prospect. Mm-hmm. So there's something that potentially works in OU's favor, but definitely feel I'll use it. Here's the analogy I'll make to last year's cycle and a player that ended up not committing to Oklahoma despite some pretty strong vibes coming out of the OV. You remember Bryson Sanders? That recruitment came down to Oklahoma and Ole Miss in the end. And there was a third school, I believe Tennessee was also in it there. And it was really just a matter of who made the best impression on the official. And Oklahoma did make a strong impression. Ole Miss was not the last school to get him on campus. In fact, I believe they were the first. But
I think LSU was the other program as well.
There you go. Yeah, but when Sanders got to the end of the whole ordeal, he just took stock of the officials that he'd gotten the opportunity to take at that point in time and said, you know what? Ole Miss is the best fit for me. It feels like that's where we're headed with Zandamela, where we don't know until he knows. And it doesn't feel like he knows yet.
So when I talk to somebody, we're probably talking to the same person. They felt like Oklahoma had just made this massive surge going into the visit, and that they did a lot of, to warrant being in a pretty good spot coming out of it. However, like you said, he still has this USC thing, and the USC, and I think he's got Florida State, right? Is Florida State his final visit? It's his final visit, right?
Florida State is the last one, yes.
Yep. And did he took USC already, right? USC was visit 1, or are they coming up, or their visit this week?
No,
and
the
then
reason why he didn't,
Florida State, yep, that's how that. Yep. So, okay, I'm just having to, when you're dealing with as many guys as we're dealing with right now, like trying to dig in our brain and find the chronological orders of their OV with no books or no searching Google searches is tough sometimes. But so with Zandamela, as I was saying, Oklahoma and Bill Bedenbaugh, they've done a fantastic job. Like they really have. Like they have, and when you're talking Jeff Levy in the state of Florida, that dude has the goods. And so Oklahoma has been making progress with him, and strong progress. But Florida State has always been what most people thought was the leader. The person I talked to in Florida seemed to feel like USC was more of a threat than Florida State. Now, the official visits are going to change a lot of things over the next few weeks. And I don't know. he doesn't strike me as the type that's going to commit on a visit, because he strikes me as the type of kid that's going to come home, he's going to sit on it, think about it, and then, as you said, just wake up one day and be like, yeah, this is where I'm going to go. And so I don't foresee a commitment at Florida State. I don't foresee a commitment at USC. That said, these international guys can be very, very impulsive sometimes, just because the game of football is new for the most part. Number one. Number two, um, this whole notoriety thing is just very new to them. And a lot of, sometimes these international dudes just don't like it. So it's culturally, it's very different. So that's something to watch as well. But again, I think Oklahoma, just like you said, has done a really good job with Zandamela. I just don't know, like, being the first in the clubhouse as far as official visits with him doesn't seem like as good a play as it might have, you know, a few months ago. I don't know. Just because I'm gonna throw Marquise Easley out there for you. I talked to him today, and he's been on 2 visits. In both schools, he says, or that he's taken his official visits to, are at the top. So he's obviously he's out of the Chicago area. Uh, how would you say? Is it Kankakee? Kanaki?
Kankakee, I believe is how you say it.
Kankakee? Kankakee,
Kankakee.
Illinois?
Yeah.
Whatever. Um, anyways, he's a 4-star offensive lineman out of Illinois. He visited Oklahoma, and I'm going to tell you this: how Oklahoma did the visit in the hangar with the jets, with the cars, with the basketball, with the tennis, all that type of stuff, and how they did the breakfast at Sam Noble. You know how I wrote the report of Venables and company was trying to, and I did this on OU Insider. So if you're not on OU Insider, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to say it anyways. They're just trying to be different at Oklahoma. They're trying to be different. They're trying to make people remember the visit and make it long lasting, create really unique photo ops for everybody. And what Marquise Easley told me goes directly in line with what they were trying to do. Because he kept saying, Oklahoma's different. The way they handled the visit was different. The way they did the barbecue was different. The way they did in the barbecue, meaning the dinner on Saturday night, was different. The way they did the morning breakfast was different. And he said that just stuck out to him in his mind. And he said, when you add that to how Coach Beanbo develops players, he goes, that's what puts Oklahoma to the top. So, again, I think at the end of the day, you're going to see Oklahoma have to battle the Georgias of the world, the Alabamas of the world, for Marquise Easley. And right now, Georgia thinks they're in the catbird seat. And I don't think we have anything to dispute that, because he literally told me today that they're at the top with Oklahoma. And he got real specific with Georgia. So that tells me it's very important to him as well, because I didn't even ask questions. And before I could even get to the Georgia stuff, he started talking about Georgia and how that went and how his conversation with Kirby Smart went and all that type of stuff. He did the same thing with Oklahoma. So that tells me those two, his first 2 visits, were probably the most important to him. Now, the problem is the further he gets away from the Oklahoma visit, does it resonate as much as the Georgia visit did? Because when you still talk to people around Georgia with Marquise Easley, it still feels like they think they're going to get him. But we'll see. So that's always been my hesitation with him. He's come to, what is he, unofficially visited Oklahoma twice?
Yes.
And he's coming for an official visit. So He's given Oklahoma every opportunity to win this thing. It's just they've got to close it out, and they've got to continue to keep pushing. After every official visit, they've got to push and remind him why he loved being in Norman. And I think we're going to find out. We're obviously going to find out July 8th. That's when he said his commitment, and that's when we're going to know. But I think Oklahoma and Georgia are going to be the ones that battle this thing out when it comes time for a decision. So we'll know more later on. Do you have anybody else that you really want to dive into? I know Kobe Black, but I want to tell everybody, like, I'm going to have a note on OU Insider about Kobe Black because he and I are talking tomorrow. I'll have more on Eli Bowen, and I'll have more on Marcellus Williams. I'll say this. Marcellus Williams was hosted by Gentry Williams. That I know, and I know it went really well. But I'll have more on all three of those. Parker will have a whole bunch more notes coming, I think. Before we close this out, though, I do want to get into David Stone and the ChampU BBQ.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, let's start this. So Xavier Robinson, 3-star Carl Albert running back, will be on campus tomorrow, which is Monday, June 12th through the 13th for an official visit. There's also a ton of dudes coming for the 12th, for the 13th and 15th camps at Oklahoma. It is going to be a who's who of talent this week for Oklahoma. So that will also be on OU Insider. We are going to have all this stuff covered. And if you sign up, you get it for free. Free right now. Free. I'm going to say it again. It is free until August 10th. And I'm telling you, after August 10th, you're going to want to stay with us. So if you cancel, it does not charge your card. So before August 10th, but you're going to want to come on and you're going to want to be with us because we're going to have information galore. And then fall camp rolls around and we're going to have all the team notes that you could ever dream of. Insider notes galore. You're going to know who's doing what. Is Jackson Arnold pushing Dylan Gabriel for the starting quarterback? All that good stuff will be on OU Insider. We promise you that. But yeah, let's talk about the ChampU BBQ. I think that's important because we're going to have a list later on this week, full list of visitors. And it is going to be nasty what Oklahoma's bringing in, just straight filthy. If you're an Oklahoma fan, this week and this weekend is going to be what you guys dream of as far as visits go and guys coming in, right, Parker? Like this, it's going to be insane.
Yeah. Well, tell you, one of the guys that would have been, in my opinion, would have been on commit watch heading into this weekend is off the board in bizarre fashion tonight because Easton Baker just committed to Illinois about an hour before we hit record, which is just.
These are the days of our lives.
You want to talk about wild?
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming.
And that's 3-star wild right there. 5-star wild is NIL offers of ridiculous size and recruitments that drag out until National Signing Day or after. 3-star wild is a kid takes his first official visit to Illinois and decides to just shut things down.
So you can almost guarantee, much like Jenkins, the Butler junior college defensive end, you can almost guarantee Oklahoma went, dude, if you really want to go to Illinois, we are not going to keep recruiting you. Like, that's not who we deal with and how we deal with. If that is how you choose, nope. You know how I know that? Because that's exactly how Jenkins happened. And that's exactly what they did with him. Like, they said deuces, bro. if you're even contemplating Illinois, we're out. Like, basically because they feel they're above that. And they are. And that's no shot at Illinois. It's just they're not Oklahoma.
Well, yeah, and it's just it's also no shot at Illinois to say it is undeniably weird and shocking when a kid's got an official visit set to Oklahoma, especially at the linebacker position, where he has the opportunity to be coached by Brent Venables. And yet he goes to Champaign the weekend prior and says, you know what? I've seen enough.
He
Weird
loves
stuff.
playing in front of 50,000 people, baby.
Weird
That's been
stuff.
on his
And
streak.
when you combine that with all of the positive comments he had made about
Oh yeah,
Venables and Ted Roof and how excited he was for that Oklahoma visit, did not have that on my bingo card at all. But there we are. That certainly makes the Braden Platt recruitment all the more pivotal for Oklahoma. And
very much so.
man,
So
beyond Platt and James Nesta, the question becomes, okay, do you start
Ty
looking at
Anthony Smith,
yeah,
probably.
well, do you start looking at additional offers at the linebacker position? One guy just springs to mind, maybe because I just went and saw him, is Jay Sean Ross's high school teammate, Melvin Laster, who's a 4-star prospect committed to UNLV. So
Yeah.
looking for a guy that wouldn't be a tough flip. It's probably it.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good play. And I wouldn't be shocked if Oklahoma actually went down that road. But let's talk about David Stone before we get in there, because that's what everybody wants to. I'll say this. So today I was around somebody that was around him, or wouldn't say around him. I talked to somebody that was very, very entrenched in knows the inner workings of his Florida official visit. Obviously, that was June 2nd. And though Florida is in a good spot, don't get me wrong, this person seems to think that Miami and Oklahoma are the teams to beat for him, which goes in line with what we've felt for quite a while. He keeps showing up to Miami more than he does anywhere else outside of Oklahoma. He's been to Oklahoma far more, even though he lives in Florida. The dude somehow ends up in Norman more than he does anywhere else. So that's very telling. The fact that he was talking to Williams Nwaneri today about what could be goes exactly in line with what I reported a week ago when he was supposed to show up to the camp, when Nwaneri was supposed to show up a little bit early. They were supposed to talk. They were supposed to do some things. It feels like David Stone is doing some things behind the scenes a little bit. It has a lot of, who was it last year that was doing Derek LeBlanc? It has a very LeBlancish feel. Does it not, Parker?
Well, and that was before everybody knew that LeBlanc was committed to Oklahoma. That's when
Okay,
there was
we
still all
knew the
that
whole
Florida and
time
Miami
though. So
buzz. Yeah, but that's the
yeah,
thing. He was recruiting for OU behind the scenes before he was officially committed. So yeah,
yeah.
I see where you're going with that comparison.
So yeah, and that's not to say he's gonna David Stone is 100 unequivocally going to end up in Norman. Like
It's a
that's
5-star
so
defensive lineman. You can't
yeah,
take it to the
exactly.
bank until Penn
I'm
hits
not
paper.
going down that road with you all. So but I have a pick in for him to Oklahoma. So if you want to use that against me, by all means, don't give a crap. That's just how I feel it's going to end up, whether he commits somewhere else now. I think once Oklahoma starts winning at the end of during the season, and I think that's going to happen on several fronts. I think there's going to be battles that Oklahoma lost and will lose later on down the line. But when they start going 6-0, 7-0, and I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, or let's say they're 5-1 or 4-2 or 6-2 come November or whatever, you're going to see people go, oh, and these recruits go, hey, coach, remember, you're good now. So I'm going to give you more of a chance. I see where you're going with this program. It's there's some tangible evidence now, and it's not just, well, this is our plan. This is what we've done at Clemson. This is what we did at Oklahoma prior to all this. They can actually see it happening right in front of them. So I think there's going to be guys that happens with down the road. I don't know who that's going to be. So if you ask me to predict that, if you have Parker to predict that, we are not going to be able to do that. But we feel like there's going to be some flip flops going on during the season. I don't think this recruiting class is going to end like last year's where it was just a dud come National Signing Day. I think you're going to see Oklahoma trying to flip 4 or 5 guys that are big names down the road once they start winning in the
Peyton
season.
Pierce, anyone?
I mean, do you agree with that? Like, that's where I'm at. That's why I kind of feel like this is going to go.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree, because once you start winning, then people start noticing. And so you're going to get guys this summer just based on the vision, right? Just based on the fact that you're Oklahoma, and having one down year is enough of an outlier in its own right. But the most everybody understands, to have two, like, that just isn't going to happen at Oklahoma. But once you hit the field in the fall and you actually, rubber meets road and you're actually winning those games, then not only does it validate the notions of all the guys that believed in the vision, but it's going to start catching the eyes of folks around the nation that maybe weren't as sold quite yet.
Yep. No, I agree. So with Stone, he's going to be in this weekend. There's a little buzz, much like Caden Durham, that there could be a camp, sighting of David Stone. You never know. And or he might show. Look, Caden Durham's going to be in town the 14th and 15th. They're about as good of friends as you can get, along with Xavier Robinson, Michael, Patterson McDonald as well. So Caden Durham's showing up on the 14th is the plan right now for an unofficial camp with Oklahoma on the 15th, and then take his official visit the 16th, 17th, and 18th. So that is the plan right now. If that changes, we will update you all on OU Insider. Having said that, it wouldn't shock Parker and I if if there was a David Stone sighting in the middle of the week in Norman. Just because that's how that dude works. He's already right down the road at his sister's and mom's place, so he can show up anytime he wants to. He's on campus all the time. He actually shows up on campus more than you all know. Like, everybody wants to sit there and, he's never. That dude is quietly on campus with Coach Bates and Coach Chavis quite a bit, and he doesn't post. He's publicly said it. He goes, "I'm there all the time. I just don't post about it." So there's a lot to like if you're Oklahoma. I think this weekend, though, is huge, huge, huge. The team I feel is fading, and fading fast, is Michigan State. There's even buzz that visit may not even take place. So I haven't had that confirmed yet from David, but there's buzz about that not taking place. So we'll see. Just something to throw out there, something to keep in mind. So if it doesn't take place, we kind of hinted towards it, but we haven't been able to fully confirm it through David. I've heard it through a couple sources that it may not take place. So we'll see. Other programs that are on him, obviously Oregon wants him to visit during the season, and so does Texas A&M wants him to come in July. Both those visits are ones that he is not sure whether he's going to take, because there's a lot of buzz that he may be deciding in August, somewhere around the first 2 weeks of August. We'll see if that changes. 5-star defensive lineman. I don't put anything in stone, pun intended. All right. I thought I would at least get a smirk for that one, Parker. I thought that was a good one.
No, you got the smirk on Wednesday on the live stream. You don't get 2 smirks.
Okay, fine. Going to the well one too many times.
Uh-huh.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this version. Parker with amazing notes on Williams Nwaneri on this podcast and on OU Insider. So if you are not on OU Insider, ChampU 23 is the code. ChampU 23.
3 months. Nothing to
You
lose.
get June, July, and half of August for free if you sign up right now. Give it a shot. I promise you won't regret it. So much information is about to be dropped on OU Insider and has been dropped. A lot of stuff that we like. There's a huge list of visitors we didn't even touch on here because they're on OU Insider, and that's where you're going to get your information. So we give as much as we can on this podcast because we want to give to you guys as much as we can, the Sooner fan base. But obviously, we also have the website that we love to have you guys on. And we're there for you guys answering questions every day. If you got questions, you put it on the board. We answer them. I do a weekly chat. Parker does a weekly Q&A. There's so much that we do for you guys that we hope that we bring value to everything when it comes to Oklahoma athletics. So, anyways, also want to thank our sponsor, Olipop. They have been huge for us. They have helped us in so many different ways, and they're a great beverage. Like Parker said, there's Coke, there's root beer, there's Dr. I don't even know what's it called.
Dr.
Parker?
Goodwin.
Dr. Goodwin. There's so many, and it's sugar-free. So if you just love that fizzy taste, that carbonated taste, but you don't want your sugars, you don't want all the bad ingredients that the Diet Cokes of the world, that the Dr. Peppers, that the Coca-Colas have infused in them, you get that with Olipop. It's healthy.
And I should clarify.
100% healthy. Go ahead.
I should clarify. It's not 100% sugar-free. There is going to be up to 5 grams of sugar in every can. But the reason why is because the sweetness, and it is legit sweetness. It's real sweetness. It comes from natural ingredients. For instance, watermelon lime, very popular seasonal flavor right now. It's got real watermelon juice in it.
Bro, I almost spit out my water when you went with the sweetness. Go ahead.
Anyway. Now I'm off track. I don't even know where I was going next.
No, you were talking about the watermelon. The watermelon.
Yes. Point is, Olipop's got 14 flavors. They got one for you, whether you're a cola person, a root beer person, a Dr. Goodwin person. They got lemon lime, orange squeeze, classic grape. So if you like those fruit flavors, they've got one for you. Mm-hmm. Whatever your proclivity is when it comes to soda, Olipop has a delicious, fizzy, genuine sip for you that is going to be free of added sugars and all of the artificial sweeteners that come with traditional soda alternatives. Can't say enough about Olipop and how they are revolutionizing the soda space. I've been drinking them since long before we ever had this partnership. I quit drinking soda when I was 18 years old. It's a really hard thing to get off of. But with Olipop, your guilty pleasures don't have to be guilty anymore. They can be pleasures without the guilt.
Yes, there you go. All right. I was almost made a biblical joke there, but I just caught myself.
A biblical joke.
Yeah, I know. I almost compared Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper like some of the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah. But
oh boy.
I stayed away from I stopped myself. So anyways.
Yes. Don't drink traditional soda or fire and brimstone will rain upon you.
There you go. Among other things. Anyways, all right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast, brought to you by Olipop. Again, if you're not on OU Insider, please sign up. I haven't had this much fun covering and working since we moved over to Rivals. And I just want people to enjoy it with us. We've got so many people that have signed up with us. When we made the switch over, we were very worried about losing a lot of people, and that did not happen. As a matter of fact, we want to thank you personally, each and one of you guys that are members on OU Insider, and those that stuck it out and gave us a chance. And everybody that has been very, very, I guess, surprised by the amount of information that we drop, and very pleased with the product that we have. So if you too want to get a part of that, again, ChampU 23 promo code, you just go to ouinsider.com or oklahoma.rivals.com and you go to sign up, and boom, you put that in the promo code and you get all the way to August 10th for free right now. So we hope to see you guys there. Make sure you're also subscribed to this YouTube channel and give us a like, thumbs up, give us 5 stars on whatever platform that you listen to the podcast on. Again, this is a new platform for us, so we're trying to get restarted with everything. But anyways, thank you guys once again for listening to this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Streams podcast. For my man Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. We will see you guys on the YouTube Live later this week and another podcast heading in to the ChampU BBQ later on this week. So stay tuned. You guys have a blessed day.